The recycled air of orbital station Helios carried the sterile scent of antiseptic and metal, a familiar backdrop to Elliot Foster's daily routine. At 42, his hands still moved with the precision that had once saved lives on battlefields across 3 star systems. Now those same hands maintained life support systems rather than human bodies, a quieter existence he had chosen deliberately after seeing too much blood spilled under alien skies. Elliot's morning inspection route took him through the stations. Lower Ring, where most travelers never ventured. The maintenance tunnels were his domain, a maze of pipes and circuits that kept 6,000 souls breathing comfortably in the vacuum of space. He checked his tablet, confirming the pressure readings. In Section 14, when the emergency alert pulsed against his wrist, "Medical emergency in Docking Bay 7, the station's AI announced. "All qualified medical personnel requested." Elliot hesitated. He wasn't medical staff anymore. 5 years since he'd hung up that uniform, but old instincts died hard, and his feet were already moving before his mind had fully processed the decision. The scene at docking. Bay 7 was controlled chaos. A small transport shuttle had docked without proper clearance, and security personnel formed a perimeter around the vessel. Through the crowd, Elliot spotted Dr. Hernandez, one of the station's senior physicians, kneeling beside a figure on the floor. "I need a trauma kit and type universal blood substitute," she called out, her voice sharp with urgency. Elliot pushed through the onlookers. "Former combat medic," he announced, kneeling opposite Hernandez. "What do you need?" The doctor's eyes flicked up to his face, relief evident. "Help me stabilize her." Her was a Vrenthri female, one of the bioluminescent species from the Andromeda colonies. Her natural blue-green skin had faded to a sickly gray, and the characteristic luminescent patterns along her temples pulsed weakly. Elliot recognized the signs of severe organ failure immediately. "Both renal organs have shut down," Dr. Hernandez confirmed, scanning the alien with a medical tricorder. "Infection has compromised her entire filtration system. She needs dialysis immediately, but Vrenthri physiology rejects standard dialysis," Elliot finished, recalling his xenobiology training. "Their blood composition crystallizes under artificial filtration." The alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises the color of amber. They focused on Elliot with surprising clarity for someone in her condition.
"Oh.
"My name is Nevia," she whispered, her translator unit crackling with static. "I seek ... asylum. Political refuge." Dr. Hernandez looked grim. "Without functional kidneys and with this level of infection, she won't survive 48 hours. We need a compatible donor organ, but cross-species transplantation for Vrenthri is practically unheard of." A security officer stepped forward. "Station protocol requires registration and sponsorship for refugee medical procedures beyond emergency stabilization." "Without official status, she'll die," Elliot interrupted, his voice flat. The cold calculation happening around this dying woman was all too familiar. Budget constraints, resource allocation, the careful arithmetic of determining whose life warranted saving. It was why he'd left battlefield medicine, only to find the same calculations happening in peacetime. "Run a compatibility scan," Elliot said suddenly. "On me." Dr. Hernandez looked startled. "Mr. Foster, the chances of human Vrenthri compatibility are astronomically low. And even if just run it," he insisted. While the scan processed, Elliot helped move Nevia to the medical bay. Her breathing had become labored, each inhale a visible struggle. The infection was progressing rapidly, toxins building in her bloodstream as her body failed to filter them. "Why?" Nevia asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of medical equipment. Elliot adjusted her thermal blanket. "Why? What? Why help?" When others turned away, her eyes held his, searching. Before he could answer, Dr. Hernandez returned, her expression one of disbelief. "It's a match," she said, staring at her tablet. "Not perfect, but within acceptable parameters for adapted protocol. Your kidney, a human kidney, could potentially function in her system." The room fell silent. Cross-species organ donation was rare enough between closely related species. Between humans and Vrenthri, it was unprecedented. "Then let's do it," Elliot said simply. Mr. Foster, you need to understand the risks, Dr. Hernandez cautioned. This procedure has never been documented. Recovery will be painful. There could be complications we can't predict. Elliot looked at Nevia, at the fading luminescence that signaled her life ebbing away. In her eyes, he saw the same desperate will to live he'd witnessed in countless soldiers and civilians caught in wars not of their making. I understand, he said, already removing his maintenance jacket. Prep for surgery. As the medical team rushed to prepare, Nevia reached out, her fingers brushing Elliot's wrist. The touch left a faint glow against his skin, the bioluminescent equivalent of tears. I will remember, she promised. Elliot nodded, feeling the weight of a choice that would bind their fates together in ways neither could yet imagine. The first sensation Elliot registered was pain, a deep, throbbing ache radiating from his left side. The second was the sound of steady beeping from medical monitors. He opened his eyes to the dimmed lights of the recovery ward, his throat dry, and his thoughts sluggish from anesthesia. You're awake earlier than expected, said a voice to his right. Dr. Hernandez stood beside his bed, checking his vitals with practiced efficiency. Her expression was a mixture of professional concern and something else, respect, perhaps. How did it go? Elliot asked, his voice rough. Remarkably well, all things considered. Your kidney is functioning in her system better than any of us anticipated. She adjusted something on his IV drip. The xenobiology team is already talking about publishing a paper. This could change our understanding of interspecies medical compatibility. In Nevia. Stable. The infection is responding to targeted antibiotics, now that her system has functioning filtration. She's still sedated. Dr. Hernandez paused. What you did was extraordinary, Mr. Foster, and technically against station regulations without prior ethics committee approval. Elliot attempted to shift position and winced as pain flared along his incision. Good thing you didn't wait for a committee then. A ghost of a smile touched the doctor's lips. Station Director Voss wants to speak with you once you're recovered. I believe his exact words were either commend him or court-martial him. Looking forward to it, Elliot replied dryly. The next 12 hours passed in a haze of pain management and forced rest. Elliot had been a difficult patient during his military days, and recovery hadn't improved his disposition. By evening, he was insisting on walking the short distance to Nevia's room, despite medical advice to the contrary. 5 minutes, doctor? Hernandez relented, recognizing the stubborn set of his jaw, and back to bed or I'll sedate you myself. Nevia's room was kept warmer than the standard hospital ward, accommodating the Vrinthuri's higher temperature requirements. The low light accentuated the bioluminescent patterns visible on her exposed skin, brighter now. Pulsing with a steady rhythm that matched the beeping of her heart monitor, Elliot stood in the doorway, one hand pressed against his side where a part of him now lived inside her. The medical reality of their situation struck him anew, his human kidney, functioning within an alien body, filtering alien blood. The impossibility of it. Nevia's eyes opened slowly, adjusting to consciousness. When she spotted him, the luminescent patterns along her temples flickered briefly, like a caught breath. You're alive, she said, her voice stronger than it had been before the surgery. So are you. Elliot moved closer, leaning slightly on the rolling floor stand for support. The doctors say your organ is adapting to my system. They cannot explain it. Her amber eyes studied him with intensity. In Vrenthuri culture, to carry another's life-giving organ creates a bond called takoveron, the shared breath. We become connected, our fates intertwined. Elliot lowered himself carefully into the chair beside her bed. On Earth, we just call it being a donor. Less poetic. For the first time, something like a smile curved her lips. Your species values function over meaning. Sometimes, he acknowledged, but not always. A nurse entered with medication. For Nevia, eyeing Elliot with disapproval, you should be resting, Mr. Foster. I am resting, he replied, not moving from his chair. After the nurse departed, silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with unspoken questions. Why were you seeking asylum? Elliot finally asked. Nevia's luminescence dimmed. Slightly. I carried information. Dangerous information about Vrenthari military movements along the border colonies. My government plans expansion that will violate treaties with your coalition. Elliot tensed. The fragile peace between human-led coalition space and the Vrenthari Concordat had been maintained through careful diplomacy for decades. Open violation of territorial treaties could spark interstellar conflict. You're a whistleblower, he said. I was a diplomatic analyst. I saw communications that were never meant for my clearance level. Her fingers traced patterns on her blanket. When discovered, I had no choice but to flee. There were complications during my escape. My injury became infected. No Vrenthari facility would treat me without reporting my location. So you risked everything to reach coalition space? Yes. Her gaze met his directly. And then you risked everything to save me? Before Elliot could respond, alarms blared throughout the medical bay. The station's emergency system activated, bathing the room in pulsing red light. Security alert. Unidentified vessel approaching. All personnel, 2 designated positions. This is not a drill. Dr. Hernandez rushed into the room. We need to move. You both to the secure ward. Now what's happening? Elliot demanded, struggling to his feet. A Vrenthari diplomatic cruiser is demanding docking clearance. They're claiming a fugitive from their justice system is aboard the station. Her eyes flicked meaningfully to Nevia. The alien woman had gone very still. The glow of her bioluminescence, now barely visible. They found me, she whispered. 2 medical technicians arrived with a transport gurney. As they transferred Nevia, her hand caught Elliot's wrist in a surprisingly strong grip. The information I carry could prevent war, she said urgently. They take me back. Thousands will die when the Concordat launches its first strike. Elliot felt the weight of her words settle alongside the ache in his side, a different kind of pain, but no less acute. He had left battlefield service to escape precisely this kind of situation. Lives hanging in the balance. Impossible decisions with devastating consequences. Yet here he was again. Connected to this alien woman, not just by his donated organ, but by the terrible responsibility of her secrets. They won't take you, he promised, not entirely sure how he would ensure it. Not while I still have a say in the matter. As they wheeled Nevia toward the secure ward, Elliot caught sight of station. Director Voss striding toward the medical bay, flanked by security officers. The man's expression was grim, his posture rigid with the tension of impending diplomatic crisis. The shared breath Nevia had called their connection. Elliot realized with sudden clarity that he had given her far more than just a kidney. He had inadvertently placed himself at the center of a conflict that could engulf worlds, and somewhere in the stars beyond the station, a Vrenthari warship waited for an answer. Station Director Voss was not a man accustomed to being denied. His presence filled the small conference room adjacent to the medical bay. His silver-streaked hair, perfectly groomed despite the crisis unfolding around them. The Vrenthari delegation insists she is a traitor who stole classified information, Voss stated, his tone clipped. They demand her immediate extradition under Section 12 of the Interstellar Diplomatic Accord. Elliot sat stiffly in his chair, pain medication dulling the worst of his discomfort but leaving his mind clear enough to recognize the danger. She's a political refugee seeking asylum. That status supersedes extradition requests until a formal hearing. In normal circumstances, yes. Voss clasped his hands behind his back. But the Vrenthari ambassador has presented evidence that Nevia, Crevel accessed restricted military communications without authorization. That makes this a matter of interstellar security, not politics. Dr. Hernandez, who had insisted on attending the meeting as Elliot's physician, interjected. She's also 2 days post-transplant surgery. Moving her would constitute a significant medical risk. Voss's expression remained impassive. The Vrenthari have offered to provide medical care aboard their vessel. The same people who want her tried for treason? Elliot scoffed. How convenient, Mr. Foster. Voss leaned forward, resting his palms on the table. I understand you've developed a personal interest in this situation. At the delicate intersection of multiple interstellar powers, we cannot afford to trigger a diplomatic incident over one refugee, no matter how compelling her case, even if she has information that could prevent a war. a flicker of something concern. Perhaps crossed Voss's face. What exactly did she tell you? Elliot measured his words carefully. The Concordat is planning military action against coalition border colonies. Action that violates existing treaties. The security chief, Commander Trevino, who had been silently observing from the corner, stepped forward. Sir, if this information is accurate, we need to alert Coalition Command immediately. Based on the word of a fugitive? Voss shook his head. Without corroborating evidence, we'd risk escalating tensions unnecessarily. Then let me speak with her, Elliot insisted. Let her provide details that can be verified through intelligence. Channels. A tense silence filled the room as Voss considered the request. Finally, he nodded. You have 3 hours before I must give the Vrenthry delegation an answer regarding their extradition demand. Make them count. As the meeting dispersed, Dr. Hernandez caught Elliot's arm. You should be resting. Not playing diplomat, she murmured. I'm fine, he replied automatically. Her skeptical expression made it clear she wasn't convinced. The xenobiology team has been monitoring both of you. There's something unusual happening with your immune markers. They're showing signs of synchronization. It's as if your systems are adapting to each other across species barriers. Is that dangerous? Unknown, she admitted. But it may explain. The exceptional acceptance of your kidney and her system. Your bodies are literally changing to accommodate each other. Elliot absorbed this information with a grim nod. One more complication in an increasingly complex situation. In the secure ward, Nevia sat propped against pillows, her luminescence patterns shifting with anxiety. When Elliot entered, her eyes found his immediately. They want to take me back, she stated. Yes, we don't have much time. He sat carefully at her bedside. I need details, Nevia. Specific information that Coalition intelligence can verify independently. She nodded, her expression solemn. The operation is called Silent Reclamation. 3 Vrenthry battle groups are positioning near the Arcturus, Proxima, and Bernard star systems. The first phase involves disabling communication relays to isolate the colonies before ground forces deploy. Projected timeline? 17 standard days from now. Her fingers traced nervous patterns on her blanket. The diplomatic cruiser outside, it's not just here for me. Ambassador Jalvek is meeting with Director Voss to ensure the station remains neutral when the offensive begins. Elliot felt cold realization settle in his gut. This station would be the perfect observation post. From here, they could monitor Coalition response patterns without being directly involved. Yes, the Concordat plans to claim they are merely reclaiming contested territories according to their ancestral claims. Nevia's luminescence flickered with emotion. But these are populated worlds, Elliot. Millions of beings, human and non-human alike, in those systems. Why would the Concordat risk open war now? The peace has held for decades. Nevia's expression darkened. Internal politics. The Ascendancy Council faces growing dissent. Military success would consolidate their power and silence opposition. Factions. She reached for his hand, her touch leaving a faint glow against his skin. I must speak directly with Coalition Command. The information in my head could save countless lives. The door slid open, interrupting their conversation. Commander Trevino entered, her uniform impeccable, despite the tension evident in her posture. Mr. Foster, we've received a new communication from the Vrenthry vessel. They're demanding proof of life for the fugitive. They claim concern for her medical treatment. They're stalling, Elliot replied. Buying time until Ambassador Jelvik concludes his meeting with Voss. Trevino's expression remained neutral, but Elliot caught the slight narrowing of her eyes' consideration. Of his assessment, perhaps. But Director Voss has authorized a brief visual confirmation transmission. Supervised and controlled. Elliot and Nevia exchanged glances. That seems reasonable, he finally said. But Dr. Hernandez should be present to verify her medical status. The commander nodded. Transmission in 30 minutes. Security will escort you. After Trevino departed, Nevia gripped Elliot's wrist with surprising strength. That I have had surgery. They will know something has changed. Would they recognize signs of a transplant? Yes, her luminescence pulsed with agitation. And when they realize what has happened, that I carry a human organ, they will have even more reason to take me. Elliot frowned. I don't understand. In Vrenthry society, physical purity is sacred, especially among the ruling classes. To voluntarily accept an alien organ would be seen as corruption of the bloodline. Her amber eyes held his. But more importantly, our biological compatibility would be of immense scientific interest to the Concordat military. The implications hit Elliot with sudden clarity. They'd want to study both of us, to understand how cross-species transplantation succeeded when it should have been impossible. Nevia nodded grimly. We would become specimens, not people. Elliot stood, ignoring the pull of pain from his incision. As security arrived to prepare for the transmission, Elliot caught sight of Dr. Hernandez hurrying down the corridor, her expression troubled. She pulled him aside, voice low and urgent. The latest blood work shows accelerating changes in both your systems, she whispered. Whatever is happening between you two on a cellular level, it's not just adaptation, it's transformation. Your genetic markers are showing signs of convergence. Meaning what exactly? Meaning you're becoming something neither human nor Vrenthori. Her eyes reflected both scientific fascination and genuine concern. And if the Concordat discovers this, both of you will become the most valuable research subjects in known space. Beyond the station windows, the sleek form of the Vrenthori diplomatic cruiser hung against the backdrop of stars, patient, predatory, waiting. And somewhere in the void beyond, 3 battle groups prepared for an offensive that would shatter the fragile peace between species. The countdown had begun. The transmission chamber was clinically stark white walls, minimalist furniture, and a single holographic projector in the center. Security officers positioned themselves discreetly in the corners, while Dr. Hernandez made final adjustments to Nevia's monitoring equipment. Remember, Elliot murmured, standing just out of the projection field. Keep your answers brief. Confirm your identity, but volunteer nothing about your condition.
Else.
Nevia's luminescence pulsed with nervousness, but she nodded. The hospital gown had been replaced with a high-colored robe that concealed most of her surgical site, though nothing could hide the unnatural brightness of her bioluminescent patterns. A side effect of the successful transplant. Commander Trevino activated the transmission. Channel secure. Receiving connection from Vrenthori vessel, unwavering doctrine. The holographic field shimmered, then resolved into the imposing figure of a Vrenthori male. Unlike Nevia's slender frame, Ambassador Jelvik was broad-shouldered, his skin a deeper blue-green with elaborate luminescent patterns that denoted high status. His amber eyes narrowed as they focused on Nevia. Analyst Crevel, he said, voice smooth, yet cold. It is relieving to see you alive, despite your unfortunate choices. Nevia's posture straightened imperceptibly. Ambassador, your family has been quite concerned. Your mother especially has suffered greatly from the shame of your actions. Calculated statement designed to provoke emotional response. I regret any pain caused, Nevia replied evenly, but not my decisions. Jalvek's gaze sharpened, luminescent patterns flaring with interest as he studied her more closely. You appear changed? Your biopatterns are unusually vibrant for someone reportedly near death. Dr. Hernandez stepped forward smoothly. The patient has responded well to our treatment protocols, Ambassador. She remains in recovery, however, and this transmission should not be extended unnecessarily. The ambassador's attention shifted, taking in the human doctor with cold assessment before returning to Nevia. Of course. We merely wish to ensure proper care for our citizen, while arrangements are made for her return to Concordat custody. No. Arrangements have been finalized, Trevino interjected. Station Director Voss is still reviewing the asylum request. Something like amusement flickered across Jalvek's features. Indeed, though I believe our discussions have been quite productive thus far. His gaze drifted deliberately past Nevia to where Elliot stood. And who might this be? Another medical professional? Elliot felt a chill at being noticed, but maintained a neutral expression. Just a concerned party. How interesting. Human developing. Concern for a Vrenthori fugitive. The ambassador's luminescence patterns shifted in a way that suggested calculation, I don't believe I caught your name. It's because I didn't give it, Elliot replied evenly. Dr. Hernandez stepped forward again. Ambassador, the patient requires rest. We must conclude this transmission. Galvik inclined his head slightly. Of course, but before we disconnect Denevia, consider what your actions truly mean for our people. The path you've chosen leads to conflict, not peace. Turn willingly, and perhaps reconciliation remains possible. Nevia's luminescence flickered briefly before stabilizing. Peace built on conquest is merely subjugation. Dressed in diplomatic language, Ambassador. I choose truth. The hologram dissipated, leaving the room in tense silence. He knows something's different about you, Elliot said quietly. Yes. Nevia's hand drifted unconsciously to her side where the transplanted kidney resided, and he will not stop until he discovers what it is. Commander Trevino's communicator chimed. Her expression hardened as she listened to the message. Director. Voss requests your presence immediately, Mr. Foster. Alone. The director's office overlooked the station's main docking ring, offering a panoramic view of arriving and departing vessels. Voss stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him as he gazed out at the Vrentheri ship. Ambassador Jalvek has made an interesting proposal, he said without turning as Elliot entered. The Concordat is willing to sign an expanded trade agreement with Helios Station 1 that would increase our commerce by approximately 30% in exchange for two things: the immediate extradition of Nevia Cravel and you. Elliot stiffened. Me. Voss turned, his expression carefully neutral. Apparently, the ambassador has developed a sudden interest in your connection to his fugitive. He specifically requested your transfer to Concordat custody as part of their medical research initiative. And you're actually considering this? I'm considering all options to prevent an interstellar incident. Voss gestured to a data display showing multiple incoming vessels. 3 Coalition cruisers have altered course toward this station after receiving an anonymous transmission containing claims of impending Vrentheri aggression. Meanwhile, the Concordat has dispatched additional ships to ensure their diplomatic mission's safety. The implications were clear. Helios Station was rapidly becoming the focal point of dangerous military posturing. Someone sent Nevia's intelligence to Coalition Command, Elliot realized. Commander Trevino, to be precise. Voss's tone remained even, though his expression suggested complex feelings about his security chief's actions. She believed the information warranted immediate attention, regardless of diplomatic consequences. Elliot studied the station director, reassessing the man. You didn't stop her. I serve the Coalition, Mr. Foster, even when it complicates my job. Voss sighed, suddenly looking older. The problem remains. We now have a developing military standoff with a critically important refugee and a human donor who shares some sort of unprecedented biological connection. Dr. Hernandez told you she had to. Whatever's happening between you and the Vrentheri woman represents potentially groundbreaking xenobiology. Your cellular structures are adapting to each other in ways our scientists cannot explain. Voss stepped closer, which is precisely why the Concordat wants both of you. Imagine the military applications of technology derived from studying how your bodies have overcome species barriers. The realization hit Elliot with cold clarity. This isn't just about Nevia's intelligence anymore. It's about what our compatibility represents. Exactly. Ambassador Jalvek has requested a full demonstration of your medical status, with Concordat physicians present. Voss's expression hardened. I've delayed sighting station protocols, but they're growing insistent. And if you refuse, then we risk immediate escalation. The Concordat ships will demand docking under diplomatic protection protocols, placing armed personnel aboard my station. Voss turned back to the viewport. All because you couldn't follow regulations and wait for proper authorization before donating an organ. The unfairness of the accusation stung, but Elliot recognized the fear beneath Voss's anger. The man was responsible for thousands of lives aboard the station, all now potentially in danger. What if there was another option? Elliot asked slowly. A way to defuse the situation without surrendering either of us to the Concordat. Voss raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Let me speak directly to the Coalition commanders when they arrive. If they understand the full situation, both Nevia's intelligence and the scientific implications of our compatibility, they might offer protection that even the Concordat wouldn't challenge. A diplomatic gambit based on your personal value as a scientific anomaly? Voss sounded skeptical. Based on what our existence represents, Elliot corrected. Proof that humans and Vrenthri aren't as biologically distinct as both sides have. Claimed that could change fundamental assumptions underlying decades of tension. Before Voss could respond, the station alarms blared a different pattern from before, signaling internal emergency. Security breach in medical sector announced. The station AI. Unauthorized access detected. Voss activated his command interface. Report. Commander Trevino's voice came through, punctuated by the sound of weapons discharge. Concordat operatives have boarded through Maintenance Airlock 7. They're heading for the secure ward. We're attempting to intercept. Moving, ignoring the protest from his healing incision. They're going after Nevia Foster. Wait, Voss called after him. Security will handle this. But Elliot was already gone, racing through corridors toward the medical bay. Driven by an instinct he couldn't fully explain, he felt a strange pressure in his chest, an urgency that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his steps. Somehow, he knew. Nevia was afraid, could feel her fear as if it were his own. The shared breath, she had called it. Their connection was no longer merely philosophical. As he rounded the final corner to the secure ward, the scene unfolded before him. 2 Vrenthri commandos in sleek combat suits. Dr. Hernandez, unconscious on the floor, and a security officer. Slumped against the wall, the ward door stood open, and from within came the sound of struggle. Elliot didn't hesitate, grabbed a fallen stun baton, and charged forward. Into the heart of a conflict that had grown far beyond a single act of compassion, one that now threatened to engulf worlds. The first Vrenthri commando turned at Elliot's approach, eyes widening with recognition. Elliot didn't give him time to react. He swung the stun baton in a precise arc, striking the vulnerable nerve cluster at the base of the alien's neck, a weakness he remembered from xenobiology training. The commando collapsed with a choked gasp, luminescence flickering erratically. Inside the ward, the second commando had Nevia pinned against the medical equipment, a syringe-like device pressed to her throat. Her luminescence pulsed with panic, the patterns matching the thundering rhythm in Elliot's own chest. Stop, the commando ordered in accented standard. This doesn't concern you, human. Actually, Elliot replied, voice deceptively calm as he assessed the situation. She's carrying one of my organs. That makes it very much my concern. The commando's luminescence patterns shifted with surprise. So it's true. The genetic contamination. His grip on Nevia tightened. All the more reason she must return to the Concordat for purification. Elliot took a careful step forward. You're making a mistake. What's happening between us isn't contamination. It's adaptation, evolution even. Blasphemy, the commando hissed. The Vrenthri form is sacred, perfected through millennia of guided development. We do not adapt to lesser species. And yet, Nevia said quietly, her voice strained but determined, his kidney functions in my body. Our cells communicate, change, grow together. What does that tell you about our supposed biological superiority? The commando's hesitation lasted. Only a moment, but it was enough. Elliot lunged, knocking the syringe away while simultaneously sweeping the commando's legs. They crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. The Vrenthri was stronger, his military training evident in every movement. But Elliot fought with the desperate focus of a man protecting something vital. A blow caught Elliot's side, directly over his incision. Pain exploded through his body, vision blurring. He felt something tear inside, warm wetness spreading beneath his shirt. The commando gained the upper hand, pinning Elliot with a forearm across his throat. For the glory of the Concordat, the commando muttered, reaching for a blade at his belt. The words never finished. A blinding flash of blue-green light erupted as Nevia struck the commando from behind with a medical scanner. The Vrenthri collapsed atop Elliot, unconscious. Elliot, Nevia's face appeared above him, her luminescence pulsing with concern. She helped push the commando's weight off him, gasping when she saw the spreading bloodstain on his shirt. You're bleeding. Surgical site. Reopened, Elliot managed through gritted teeth. Nothing, fatal. The ward door slid open again. Both tensed. But it was Commander Trevino who entered, flanked by security officers with weapons drawn. Medical. Team to secure ward immediately, she ordered into her communicator, surveying the scene with professional assessment. Situation contained. 2 hostiles neutralized. Dr. Hernandez appeared moments later, a bruise darkening on her temple, but otherwise unharmed. She moved swiftly to Elliot's side, cutting away his bloodied shirt to examine the damage. Torn sutures. She confirmed, already applying pressure. You're lucky you didn't rupture something vital. Elliot's gaze remained fixed on Nevia. Are you hurt? She shook her head, kneeling beside him. Because of you, I am not. Her hand found his fingers, intertwining. Where their skin touched, a faint glow emerged, not just her bioluminescence, but something shared between them, a visible manifestation of their cellular connection. Commander Trevino noticed it too, her expression shifting from tactical assessment to wonder, what is that? Dr. Hernandez stared at the phenomenon, genetic exchange made visible. Their cells are communicating on a level we've never documented between different species. The moment was interrupted by Director Voss's arrival. He took in the scene with a sharp inhale, then addressed Trevino. Status of the Concordat operatives? Contained. We've also secured the maintenance airlock they used for entry. Their ship is demanding their return. And the Coalition vessels, 20 minutes from docking? Admiral Westfield has requested immediate conference upon arrival. Voss nodded grimly, then turned to Elliot and Nevia. His gaze lingered on their joined hands where the strange luminescence continued to pulse. It seems your ... connection has become rather more literal than metaphorical, Sir Trevino said, checking her tactical display. The Vrentheri vessel is powering weapon systems. The room fell silent. The situation was escalating toward the very conflict they had hoped to prevent. Get me a direct channel to Ambassador Jalvek, Voss ordered, and prepare the conference room. As soon as the Coalition representatives dock, I want everyone at the table. The conference room hummed with tension. On one side sat Ambassador Jelvik and his attaches, their luminescence patterns subdued to formal diplomacy. Opposite them, Admiral Westfield and 2 Coalition security counselors represented human interests. Director Voss occupied the head of the table, the neutral party by station position, if not by allegiance. Elliot and Nevia had been positioned in the center, visible to all living evidence of the unprecedented situation. The Concordat demands the return of our citizen and the human donor for proper medical evaluation, Jalvek stated, his tone leaving no room for compromise. Their condition requires specialized care only our facilities can provide. You mean experimentation? Admiral Westfield countered, her silver hair framing a face hardened by decades of service. Let's dispense with pretense, Ambassador. Your operatives attempted to abduct them by force. A regrettable misunderstanding. Our medical team was concerned about cross-contamination risks to your station. Interesting concern from the same government planning an unprovoked attack on 3 Coalition worlds, Westfield replied coolly. Jelvik's luminescence flared briefly before he regained control. Baseless accusations. Though I note with interest how quickly Coalition military vessels responded to such ... fictions. The diplomatic dance continued, neither side willing to acknowledge the true significance of what sat before them. 2 beings whose existence challenged fundamental assumptions about species separation. Finally, Elliot spoke. If I may? All eyes turned to him. Beside him, Nevia's hand found his beneath the table, their shared luminescence visible even through the cloth that covered their joined fingers. What's happening between Nevia and me wasn't planned or expected, but it's happening nonetheless. Cells are communicating, adapting, finding compatibility where science said none should exist. He looked directly at Jalvek. Your entire justification for territorial expansion rests on the belief that Vrentheri and humans are fundamentally incompatible, that coexistence means contamination. Our sacred texts, Jalvek began, are being disproven in real time. Nevia interrupted. her voice steady, despite the cultural taboo of challenging a high-ranking official. "Look at us, Ambassador. Really look." She raised their joined hands, revealing the shared luminescence that pulsed between them no longer. Just hers, but something new, a biological dialogue visible to the naked eye. "This is not corruption," she continued. "This is evolution, adaptation. Life finding a way forward together rather than in opposition." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the phenomenon before them. Admiral Westfield leaned forward. "Director Voss, what do your medical experts say about this?" Dr. Hernandez, who had been standing by the wall, stepped forward. "We're witnessing unprecedented cellular cooperation between species previously thought biologically incompatible. Their immune systems aren't fighting, they're communicating, adapting, creating new pathways. It's not just that his kidney works in her body. Their entire physiologies are evolving to accommodate each other in the military applications." One of the counselors asked bluntly. Leah felt a surge of anger. "Is that all you see? Weapons potential?" "That's exactly what both sides see," Nevia said softly. "Which is why neither can be trusted with exclusive access to what we represent." Ambassador Jelvik's luminescence patterns had shifted to an unfamiliar configuration as he studied them. For the first time, something like uncertainty showed in his expression. "What are you proposing?" Voss asked. Elliot exchanged a glance, with Nevia receiving a subtle nod of agreement. "We propose a joint research initiative. Neutral territory. Scientists from both the Coalition and the Concordat, with equal access and shared findings. No military applications, only medical and humanitarian goals." "Impossible," Jalvik said immediately, but his tone lacked conviction. "Is it, Admiral?" Westfield countered. "Or is it simply uncomfortable to consider that your entire justification for territorial expansion might be based on a biological falsehood?" The Admiral turned to her staff, conferring quietly before addressing the room. "Again, the Coalition would consider supporting such an initiative, provided certain conditions are met, including the immediate cessation of all Vrenthry. Military movements near our border colonies." Jalvik's expression hardened. "You have no evidence of such movements, don't we?" Westfield's smile was razor-thin. "I suggest you check with your military command, Ambassador. You might find their communications have been rather thoroughly compromised." A subtle shift rippled through the Vrenthry delegation, the realization that Nevia's intelligence had indeed reached Coalition command, and actions were already underway to counter their planned offensive. Director Voss cleared his throat. "Perhaps a recess would be beneficial. Allow all parties to consult with their respective governments." As the delegations filed out, Elliot and Nevia remained seated, the strange luminescence between them pulsing steadily like a heartbeat. "Do you think it will work?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," he admitted. "I do know neither side can afford open conflict now, with what we represent hanging in the balance." She studied their joined hands. In Vrenthry culture, there is an ancient concept called Ekinerith, the bridge between worlds, a mythical being who exists in two realms simultaneously, belonging fully to neither yet connecting both. Is that what we are now? Bridges. Her amber eyes met his, luminescence brightening. Perhaps. Or perhaps we are simply the first of something new, something neither human nor Vrenthry, but a future that includes both. 6 months later, on a purpose-built station, orbiting a neutral star, Elliot stood before a viewport watching shuttle arrivals. The newly established Convergence Research Center had finally opened its doors to scientists from both the Coalition and the Concordat, and, more significantly, to others like them. During the tense negotiations that followed that first conference, 3 more cases of successful cross-species organ donation had been discovered, hidden away by societies that feared what such compatibility might mean. Each pair showed the same unusual cellular adaptation, the same visible connection when in proximity. "Admiring your handiwork?" Dr. Hernandez asked, joining him at the viewport. As the center's medical director, she had overseen the creation of research protocols that prioritized ethical treatment of all subjects. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Elliot replied, the Concordat withdrawing from the border colonies. The coalition establishing diplomatic missions on formerly restricted Vrenthry worlds, all because one refugee needed a kidney. And one stubborn engineer decided to donate it without proper authorization, she added with a smile. Still breaking regulations, I see. He glanced down at his identification badge, which listed his role as interspecies liaison rather than research subject. Some rules need breaking. Navia appeared from an adjacent corridor. Her traditional Vrenthry robes modified to accommodate her new role as co-administrator of the center. The luminescent patterns along her temples had evolved into complex configurations that matched subtle changes in Elliot's own cellular structure, visible evidence of their ongoing adaptation to each other. The Arcturus delegation has arrived, she announced, including 2 new pairs showing preliminary signs of compatibility. Elliot nodded, taking her hand naturally. Their shared luminescence flickered to life at the contact, brighter now than it had been in the beginning. A visible reminder of what was possible when barriers were overcome. Ambassador Jalvek still maintains this is all an elaborate coalition plot, Nevia added, with a hint of amusement. Of course he does, Elliot replied. It's easier than admitting his entire worldview was wrong. Dr. Hernandez excused herself to greet the new arrivals, leaving them alone at the viewport. Beyond the transparent barrier, stars shimmered against the void, the same stars that had nearly witnessed the beginning of another destructive war. Now instead watching the first tentative steps toward a different future. Do you ever regret it? Nevia asked quietly, risking everything for a stranger. Elliot considered the question, feeling the steady pulse of their connection, a rhythm that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat. In the months since the surgery, their bond had deepened beyond the merely physical. Tachovarin, the shared breath, had proven more profound than either could have imagined. Not for a moment, he answered honestly. Though I never expected that saving one life would end up changing so many others. She smiled, the glow between them brightening. One small act of compassion echoing across the stars. Humanity's best quality, he suggested. Perhaps, she agreed. Or simply the universe reminding us that the boundaries we create are often more imaginary than real. They turned together to welcome the newcomers, more bridges between worlds, more evidence that the future belonged. Not to those who maintained separation, but to those brave enough to embrace connection. Behind them, the stars continued their eternal vigil, bearing witness to what had begun with a single choice, to risk one life to save another, and in doing so, to change the course of many worlds.